Hello, back again on the Top Recap channel. This time I will tell a movie's entitled Payback. Let's get straight into the storyline.
How much?
130 grand.
We'll hit him on Friday.
Not enough.
The story begins by showing Porter stealing a few dollars from a homeless person to eat breakfast. Then, in the afternoon, Porter steals the wallet of a wealthy man. In addition to taking the cash from the man's wallet, Porter also understands how to maximize his income by using the man's credit card to shop for luxury goods and resell them at the pawn shop. Porter also bought a gun while at the pawn shop. After shopping all day, he stopped at a restaurant for dinner. Of course, it wasn't long before Porter's robbery victim realized that his wallet was missing, and now his credit card could no longer be used. Having no cash, the porter fled the restaurant. That night, Porter was waiting in front of a house where the woman who owned the house appeared in a drunken state after consuming drugs. In her drunken state, the woman forgot to lock the door of her house and allowed Porter to get in there easily. Porter immediately prepared his weapon and looked for someone in the house. But Porter found no one else in the house and returned to the owner. When the woman saw Porter, she was surprised that he was still alive. All this time, she thought he was dead. This woman is named Lynn Porter, or is the wife of Porter. It turns out that in recent months, she's been suffering from drug addiction. Porter tried to save his wife from her addiction by locking her in the room. But what he didn't realize was that Lynn was secretly storing spare drugs under her shoes. The next morning, Lynn was found dead from a drug overdose. Porter felt a deep sadness to see his wife die in such a terrible condition. Porter decided to lie beside her, remembering the incident 5 months ago when he and Lynn were making out in his house. Porter suddenly received news about his colleague Val's next robbery target. The next day, without further ado, Porter met Val on the side of the road to discuss their next target. Val said that every Thursday and Friday, the mafia leader in Chinatown told his members to deliver $500,000 worth of money somewhere, and these money carriers always seem to take the same route. If the robbery is successful, then Val plans to use his share of the money to get into the drug-dealing community called the Syndicate. In short, a week later, we see Porter and Val trying to intercept the mafia's money car in an alley. One thing Porter realized from his monitoring last week was that he knew these money men never used seatbelts when on duty, so he planned to use that weakness in the heist this time. Due to the violent collision between the two cars, all of their targets were severely injured immediately. Porter then took a chain cutter to forcefully snatch the money suitcase from his enemy's arms. It wasn't long before Lynn showed up to give them a ride, and they finally managed to escape the scene.
How's that final taste?
But the problem suddenly arose when, after counting the money in the suitcase, it turned out to be much less than they expected. The suitcase contained only $130,000, and Val was very upset because that meant he would only get a share of $70,000. That would not be enough to get him into the Syndicate's community of drug dealers. Porter tried to remind his partner that they should be grateful that the robbery plan had gone smoothly. Seeing his partner, who began to lose his mind, made Porter alert. He immediately ordered his wife to get ready to flee the location. But suddenly, who would have thought that Porter was betrayed by his own wife? It turns out that all this time, Lynn had a grudge against him for accusing Porter of having an affair. But it seems that this is not the only reason for her betrayal, because here Lynn has also started using drugs, and Val promised to give it to her for free after he officially became a drug dealer. The scene returns to Porter, who is lying in bed. Suddenly, someone knocked on his door. It turned out to be a drug courier who routinely supplied drugs to his wife. Porter, who was upset because his wife died due to drug addiction, finally vented his anger by beating the courier who had been considered the cause of his wife's death. Porter threatened to kill the courier if he did not immediately tell him where Val was currently located. Without wasting time, Porter went to the headquarters of the drug courier boss, Arthur Stegman. Upon arrival, one of Arthur's men tried to hide his whereabouts and angered Porter.
Why don't you go fuck yourself?
As a result, the large black man was so severely injured that he had to report the incident to his boss. It turns out that at that time, his boss was playing gambling with 2 corrupt policemen. Porter was almost shot dead for interrupting their game. Fortunately, Porter immediately threw several packages of heroin that the courier wanted to send. Knowing there was a heroin package made the police now look at Arthur, who was considered less likely to give deposits because it turned out that he was a drug dealer. Arthur, who was panicking, immediately invited Porter to talk outside the building. Arthur explains that he and Val are just business partners. Once a month, he receives a supply of drugs from Val, who is now officially part of the syndicated community. Then, the drugs are distributed by his couriers to several regular customers. Arthur didn't know where Val lived, but was sure the man was still in town. Since killing Arthur was pointless, Porter asked him to deliver his message of revenge to Val. Meanwhile, Val is staying in a hotel heavily guarded by the mafia. That afternoon, his girlfriend Pearl comes to his room to chat. It seems that the two of them have the same fetish.
Fucking phone! Make it 20 minutes, huh?
In the evening, Val meets Arthur at a restaurant. Arthur delivered a threatening message to Val from someone named Porter. Hearing Porter's name, Val is shocked because Porter should have been killed 5 months ago.
And this time he stays dead.
Val is also very familiar with Porter, a professional robber. Even though he is now under the protection of the most powerful mafia in the city, it does not mean Porter cannot kill him. While waiting for information from Arthur, Porter decided to look for his mistress, Rosie, who turned out to be a high-class prostitute. But the information is that in recent months, Rosie's whereabouts have disappeared, and her friends no longer know her. But it's not Porter if he can't get what he wants. After asking here and there, Porter managed to find a hotel employee who knew where Rosie was. Long story short, Porter met Rosie. Rosie looks very happy when she sees Porter. Of course, the two of them have loved each other in the past, but their relationship is hindered by their respective statuses. Rosie thought Porter was dead, even so sad that she bought a guard dog and named it after Porter.
Porter?
It turns out that Porter's arrival to meet Rosie is to find out Val's current whereabouts. Porter suspects that Rosie must know where he is because she used to serve the mafia officials in the city, and Porter used to be her delivery boy. Hearing Val's name, Rosie immediately became emotional because it turned out that she had served the Masher, and at that time, she even had to be battered because Val was known for beating his partner. However, Porter promises to kill Val, so Rosie happily gives Val's address.
Oakwood Arms Union in 17th.
The scene then shows Porter, who has managed to sneak into Val's room. It turns out the mobsters guarding outside are no match for him.
Hi, Val. Get out of here.
But instead of immediately killing Val, Porter asks where his money is. But Val said all the money he had given to the mafia boss and the most powerful drug dealer in New York City, named Carter. In the end, Val has until tomorrow afternoon to return the money. If he does not, his life will be at stake.
You and the money. Be at the corner of 7th and Franklin.
The next day, Val goes to his boss to ask for help defeating Porter, but instead of getting help, the boss begins to doubt Val's ability to solve his problems. His boss reminded him again that if Val could not solve his personal problems, he did not deserve to be in the syndicate community, and the big boss would immediately expel him from the syndicate.
Yes, sir, Mr. Carter. Thank you.
Because he couldn't get help from Carter, Val finally asked his lover, who happened to be a triad member, for help.
Now, did you tell him it was Porter?
That afternoon, Porter came to the meeting location, but a triad member suddenly hit him in the middle of the road. They have prepared a trap since the beginning, and it seems that Porter did not have the strength this time because he was outnumbered. But the police suddenly appeared, making Pearl and her members flee the location. It turns out that these two corrupt cops have been following Porter's trail since yesterday and managed to find out about his background, who wants to get back $70,000. The two corrupt policemen then promised to provide reinforcements as long as the money would later be deposited with them, but if Porter refused, then Porter would be imprisoned on charges of killing his ex-wife, who was found dead in his house. Porter then returns to Rosie's apartment to treat his wounds, but he doesn't realize that Val has been secretly following him since before. And long story short, while being treated, Rosie had time to ask why the two of them had separated. It turns out that even though they have slept together, Rosie still serves guests, which makes Porter unable to continue their relationship. Hearing this, Rosie tried to persuade Porter to return to her arms. Still, the offer was immediately rejected because, at this time, Porter wanted to focus on taking revenge and getting his money back. Shortly after Porter's departure, Val suddenly appeared at the door of her apartment, and now Rosie's life was threatened. But instead of staying silent without a fight, Rosie finally pretends to say that Porter is lying in bed. It turns out that the Porter referred to by Rosie is Porter, the guard dog. Despite the help of her guard dog, Rosie still couldn't beat Val. Once again, she had to be beaten like the old days when her services were hired. Fortunately, at the last moment, Porter suddenly appeared and immediately shot Val. Because Val doesn't have the money Porter asks for, he is forced to snatch the money from Val's boss. Then Porter forced Val to tell him where Carter's headquarters were. Of course, when he heard that, he immediately felt Porter was crazy, because only for $70,000 did Porter have to fight against the mafia. But this is where he realized his former colleague was never afraid to fight to get his money back. After getting the address of his boss, Porter immediately killed Val, because in Rosie's apartment there had been a murder. From then on, they could no longer make it a place to shelter. Long story short, Porter went to the syndicate headquarters to meet Carter. But before entering the building, he planned to store his weapon in a newspaper sales box. But the problem was that suddenly, the two corrupt cops reappeared, and even this time, Arthur came with them. They seem impatient because the promised money has not yet been received. Still, Porter asks him to be patient, and suddenly decides to leave his gun with the police. Without further ado, when he entered Carter's headquarters, he was briefly searched to ensure he was not carrying a weapon. After entering Carter's room, Porter immediately beat Carter's two guards unconscious and took his weapon. Without further ado, Porter immediately explained that he had finished off Val and now asked for his money back, which Val had handed over to the syndicate. However, the request was rejected because, from the beginning, Carter was not the real leader of this mafia organization. He still had a boss named Bronson. Carter then called the boss and told her that a man named Porter wanted to take back the $130,000 deposited by Val 5 months ago. However, his boss did not want to give the money to Porter, so Porter was forced to shoot Carter to death on the spot, sparking anger from Bronson. Porter then threatened to go to Bronson's man, Fairfax, to collect his money again. Then Porter left the building to take back the gun he had left for the corrupt police. It turns out that the weapon was then placed by Porter near Val's body, along with the police badge he managed to steal. Apparently, he intends to trap the corrupt police. The next day, Porter came to Fairfax at his house. Fairfax, who saw Porter, was surprised and feared the same fate as Carter. Fairfax then called Bronson and said that Porter was in front of him and returned to collect his $130,000. Initially, Bronson does not want to give the money, which upsets Porter, and shoots one of Fairfax's bags and makes Bronson think that Porter has killed Fairfax. Bronson finally agreed to give the money, but she promised to chase Porter to the world's end. Porter then told Bronson to put the money in a blue bag and put it at King Cross Station. Meanwhile, the two corrupt cops were seen waiting for Porter to come out of the Fairfax residence. But while waiting for Porter to come out, detectives from another division suddenly appeared to detain the two of them for being accused of Val's murder, because the police found fingerprints on the gun and badge of one of them found at the crime scene. But the problem is not over yet, because Arthur and his subordinates also followed Porter earlier in a taxi car. It seems that he wants revenge. Porter then walked into his enemy's trap. Arthur wanted Porter so badly because he wanted to bring him before Bronson so that later he would be included in the syndicate's mafia family. Unfortunately, that intention must have been dashed because, in the middle of the journey, Porter managed to grab his weapon and the situation was reversed. Arthur's subordinates tried to help their boss, but suddenly, Pearl appeared and immediately shot at Porter. But Porter managed to survive the bullets thanks to taking cover behind Arthur's body. He quietly crept out of the car and then counterattacked the Triad members. In the end, Porter managed to eliminate all Triad members. Porter then went to King Cross Station to get his money back. There, Porter killed several members sent by Bronson to kill him. After that, Porter saw a woman carrying a blue bag, but he did not pay much attention to her because he thought she was not a member of Bronson. Instead, he was drawn to a long-haired man carrying a blue bag. The man then gave the blue bag to Porter. But when Porter wanted to take the bag, suddenly, the woman behind the man shot Porter, and there was a shootout on the spot. Porter then left the station with difficulty because his body was shot by the woman. Fortunately, in that critical condition, Rosie immediately saved Porter, who was already unconscious. Rosie then took Porter to a hospital outside the city.
Tell me where to go.
And the movie is over. Don't forget to click subscribe, like, and comment.